क्या हुआ? चार नींबू दूं मैं लॉर्ड्स?
In modern India, we are told the judiciary is the ultimate protector of the constitution. But what happens when the judiciary itself applies the constitution selectively? Anand Ranganathan recently delivered a brutal diagnosis of India's judicial double standard.
A Supreme Court that correctly removes discrimination from the Hindu religion but cowers behind a lamppost like a wet cat when it comes to other religions is not a Supreme Court. It's a Sharia court.
It was a scathing indictment. But to understand why he said this, we have to look at how the Supreme Court treats discrimination in different faiths.
On the matter of the Sabarimala judgment that is undergoing review right now, the simple question to be asked was it discrimination or was it perceived discrimination?
The battleground is the Sabarimala judgment. The media framed it as a simple fight between patriarchy and women's rights. But the wokeism surrounding this case ignores basic facts.
You know, we are living in an age of wokeism, victimhood, selectivity and political correctness, and I really don't know if we are allowed to tell the truth anymore. This disease of pseudo-secularism has blunted our senses.
The core question was never about actual discrimination. It was about perceived discrimination. The left-leaning ecosystem deliberately hid the context of Hindu traditions.
Now, there are many Hindu temples where men are barred entry, like Brahmaji temple, Kumari Amman temple, Atukul Bhagwati temple, and there are more than 400 Ayappa temples where women are allowed entry. It was only in this particular Ayappa temple in Sabarimala that because of the vow of the deity to remain a brahmachari,
This wasn't a blanket ban on women. It was a specific restriction based on the vow of the deity. And under Indian law, a Hindu deity isn't just a stone idol. It is a juridical person.
Remember that the Hindu deity is considered a living entity, and that's why it has judicial and property rights, and that's why Hindu temples pay income tax.
Yet, during the hearings, the Supreme Court crossed a dangerous line, comparing this centuries-old vow to the practice of untouchability.
One of the judges of Supreme Court exhorted currently that women cannot be considered untouchable for 3 days in a month, in effect insinuating that the deity's wish was making women untouchable.
If the Supreme Court is so concerned about menstrual discrimination, surely they must be looking at other faiths equally, right? Wrong. Anand Ranganathan decided to hold up a mirror to the court, using their own standards.
Can I please tell the Supreme Court, in case they didn't know this, that it is forbidden for a menstruating woman to touch the Quran, recite a complete verse, enter a mosque, do salat, perform tawaf, circumambulate the Kaaba, fast, have sex.
This is the elephant in the room. The court wants to reform Hinduism using the lens of modern rationality, but it actively avoids touching Islamic or Christian personal laws. Why? Because of a fundamental flaw in how we interpret the Constitution.
Look, there is a fundamental contradiction between Articles 21 and 25 of our Constitution. If you follow one, you cannot follow the other. There are thousands of religious diktats that directly contradict Article 21.
Article 21 gives you the right to life, liberty, and dignity. Article 25 gives you the right to practice your religion. They are constantly colliding. But the Supreme Court only enforces Article 21 when it comes to Hinduism.
If you're a true Catholic woman, you cannot be ordained a priest. If you're a true Muslim woman, you cannot sing, dance, play sports, drink, fornicate, be a homosexual, wear what you want, or be an apostate.
To see the hypocrisy clearly, you don't need a legal degree. You just need history. In 1985, the Supreme Court granted alimony to Shah Bano, a Muslim woman, under secular law. The backlash from the Islamic establishment was so intense that the Rajiv Gandhi government cowardly overturned the judgment using a constitutional loophole. Where was the Supreme Court's defense of dignity then? Anand Ranganathan contrasts this historical capitulation with the Sabarimala case.
Shah Bano judgment was overturned even though there was blatant discrimination. But the Supreme Court acted against centuries-old tradition of Sabarimala even though there was perceived discrimination. If this is not seeding resentment amongst Hindus and stoking religious wars, what is?
This asymmetrical policing of faith is exactly what Justice Indu Malhotra the sole dissenting judge in the Sabarimala hearing warned about.
Notions of rationality cannot be invoked in matters of religion, unquote. This is so true. Where do you draw the line? Are you going to tell billions that Lord Brahma couldn't have had 4 heads, or that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, couldn't have flown to heaven on a mule, or that Jesus couldn't have walked on water?
Once you appoint the court as the arbiter of what is rational in religion, there is no finish line. You are opening a Pandora's box that will inevitably lead to religious wars.
Yes, the courts do have a role to play in intervening and preventing oppressive and hurtful religious practices. But then again, what is hurtful to you or me may not be hurtful to the believer.
So what is the ultimate test of this pseudo-secularism? Anand Ranganathan provides a brilliant hypothetical scenario that exposes liberal hypocrisy in one stroke.
For example, I believe that prescribing a dress code like a burqa or a hijab is oppressive. But can the Supreme Court ban it? If it does, then it is violating the direct commandments of the Holy Quran 24, 31, 33, 59, 7, 26. Would that be acceptable to all those liberal and feminists who cheered the Sabarimala verdict? The problem is not the standard. The problem is the double standard.
He turns the court's own logic against them by asking a simple question about the burqa, and that is the nail in the coffin. The problem was never the standard of equality. The problem was always the double standard. If the courts want to reform religion, they must step into every house of faith with the same baton. Until then, it isn't justice. It is just targeted harassment.